suppose by now that you have got all of your shopping done. We just have 12 days until Christmas, and I myself got started last week. And last weekend I bought one gift, and this weekend I have bought another gift. And so I just need about 24 more weeks, and I will be ready for Christmas, because it just kind of takes me a while to part with my money. Now, call me Scrooge like you want to. It is true. But some of you here, you're kind of the opposite of Scrooge, because you've already completed all of your Christmas shopping and you would like to demonstrate your smugness now. So if you have completed all of your shopping, would you just go ahead and raise your hand right now? Yes? Look at the smug people around you who've got all their stuff done, looking at those of us who've not even started and saying something about us. Well, hey, the reason we're talking about the gifts is because you and I at this Christmas season are going to experience that joy of giving gifts and the joy of getting gifts. And for some of us, we have spent a lot of time, energy, and effort, not me, but others of you in this room spent a lot of time, energy, and effort, and you've picked out the perfect gift. You have put it on layaway if you have to. You have ordered it, so the drone is on its way to drop it off at your house right now, so that that gift will be there, and that person that you want to have the gift opened thereby, they're going to open that gift, and they're going to give you a response that will indicate how accurate you were on getting that gift. For some of them are going to respond in ways that you are not hoping they respond. Others of you are going to receive gifts, and you're going to have to figure out how to respond to those gifts. And so what we're doing in this sermon series is we are helping you to get a grip on Christmas, and by grip, meaning we are teaching you the proper gift response protocols, so that you will know what to do when you've given that gift and they look at you like you are from another planet and they ask you, where did you get this? Because I can't believe that you got it for me. Others of us are going to be sitting there, and we're going to open up that gift, and we're going to think of that person. What planet did that person come from? Because this is not what I wanted at all. And so we're going to try to help you figure out how to respond, whether you give a gift that is rejected or whether you are given a gift that you would like to reject. And so last week we kind of started you on this process by talking through some of the rejection responses that you and I may have, or that person gives us when they respond to our gift. And sometimes they're going to have that look of disappointment, like this is not what I wanted. Other times it'll be anger or sadness, or sometimes it's ambivalence, where they just open up and go, and then put it back. All of those are like forms of rejection. And we talked about how you are to properly reject a gift, and we gave you some tips on that if you are given a gift that you don't really want or that you want to reject, remember that it is a gift and an honor to be remembered. In fact, after our third service, one of our deacons came up to me and said, hey, let me tell you this story. It happened to me. He said that we would always go to his wife's family, and there was this uncle who was the kind of uncle who bought everybody the same gift. Do you have any family members that are like that? And so you see that your brother got that, or the brother-in-law got that, and you know what you got, even though you don't even have to open it up because you know what's coming. Well, he was telling that this one year was the first year for a new son-in-law in that family, a new person, and this particular uncle always bought winter gloves every year, because, you know, you need them every year, and those of us, we've probably lost a few between here and there, and you put them in the summertime, and you'd have no idea in the winter. So this guy, this uncle, gave everybody, all the men, a pair of gloves. And so he didn't even waste the money on wrapping them. He would just bring the JCPenney bag, and he would open up the JCPenney bag and pass out and toss a pair of gloves to every one of the guys in there, until he got down to the last two guys, and he looked in his sack and pulled out the last thing that was in the sack, and it was one pair of gloves for the two sons-in-law. And so the uncle, in an awkward moment, trying to figure out what to do, decided to do this. He took the gloves, ripped them apart, and handed each one of the guys a glove. Said, Merry Christmas. Now, that sounds pretty bad, except for the next year, which is this now the youngest, newest guy. This is his second year in the family, and the exact same thing happened. 2 years in a row, two guys to give a gift, one pair of gloves. I think they split them and made sure they kept the right hand from the last year. This year they got the left hand for that glove, and so it took 2 years. But he was just talking about how funny it is to even be remembered at Christmas time, because sometimes you have been forgotten, maybe, or maybe you forgot someone. So to be remembered at all, to remember that there's a gift with your name on it, is a huge honor, even though you may or may not like the gift. So that was one of the things we talked about. We also talked about that to receive a gift, you've got to recognize the sacrifice of the giver of that gift. There's a huge sacrifice on that person's part. Maybe not huge, but they did something to remember you, so that's worthy. And then always and never underestimate the ability to take a gift that you don't want and re-gift it, giving to somebody else who may enjoy the thing from Dollar Tree that you got this year, or the one glove that you received, whether or not you were Michael or not. Either way, there are opportunities to take the gift that's been given to you and to re-gift that. And you're sitting there going, why are we talking about gifts? Shouldn't we be talking about Jesus? I mean, we're in church. That's who we're supposed to talk about. Well, that's true, but you've got to recognize that the gift idea, the idea of giving gifts, is not something that I came up with. It's not something that you came up with. It's something that God came up with, because he continues to lavish gifts upon us that we don't deserve, that there's no way that we could have earned. And the greatest gift of all was Jesus, and yet in the gift of his own Son, people rejected that gift. And we want to understand what our God did when people reject him. He doesn't take our response. He uses a different response, because when he came to his own, and his own people did not receive him. It's a shocking thing for us to think about, that God had set in place this system, this organization, this ritual, this way to worship, set this up for thousands of years, pointing to the Messiah, handing it to a group of people, and when the fulfillment of that came, they did not get it. They rejected the greatest gift of all. But God, in his mercy, instead of creating a parking lot where all those people were standing at that moment, decided that he was going to do something different, and he then gave himself to all who would receive him. And today we're going to talk about that receiving of a gift. Last week we talked about how do you reject a gift. This week we're going to talk about how to properly receive a gift, because the scripture says, to all who did receive Christ, all those who received the word. This comes from John chapter 1, the prologue to the Gospel of John, explaining all the things that was coming in the rest of the book. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So when God sent his Son, not received by his own people, God then says, I'm going to send him, and everyone who receives him, I'm going to give the right to be my child. So how do we properly receive a gift? Well, to help you with that, because some of you are going to get some great gifts, and you need to know how to properly receive them, I went to a website to help us understand how to receive a gift, and I went to a website called advancedetiquette.com. Advanced etiquette, not remedial etiquette, but advancedetiquette.com, and they are giving us tips on how to properly receive a gift. So in the anticipation that someone might actually give you a gift this year, you may want to take some notes on how to actually respond to that gift that comes in. So number one, if you receive the gift in person, your number one top response is to smile. Okay? Now, for some of you, that's pretty easy. You're just kind of like smiling people. You just like to smile. You wake up smiling. You go to bed smiling, all that kind of things. Others of us have to be coached and reminded to smile, right? And so let's just practice here. We're going to practice as if someone's about to give you a gift, and I'm going to ask you to smile, okay? 1, 2, 3. Here's the gift. What are you supposed to do? Okay, that was a little weak out there, some of your smiles, but that's okay. I have to be reminded to smile because sometimes somebody brings me a gift and I'm like, oh, great, I'm getting a gift. What is going to happen now? I got to be nice to this person, and I got to smile and that kind of stuff, and then I got to pretend like I like it when they give me. So it's hard for me to smile. I have to coach myself. Hey, if somebody's giving you a gift, smile. Secondly, number 2, use both hands to receive the gift. Okay, that's kind of new. Some of you new to smile. Some of us like smiling. That would be good. Yeah, I like that. But most of us are like, receive the gift with both hands. Not just one hand. Hey, thank you. That's good. No, it's 2 hands. Receive the gift. You smile. And then, believe it or not, you're to say, thank you. Okay? That's what's supposed to happen. I know for some of you, this is like rocket science. And you're like, what did he say? I don't know. But for some of you, you do this naturally. You don't need this. But in person, if you receive a gift, smile. Use both hands, not snatching with both hands, okay, not like this, but like kind of like this. Then say thank you. But what happens if you get a gift from a person who's not there? Well, here's what you do if that gift comes from a distance. Number 1, rule of etiquette, according to advancedetiquette.com, is you are to inform the giver immediately that you receive the gift. This may be new for some of you, but if the drone drops the gift off at your house, then you need to go grab your texting device, assuming that person that sent you a device is able to text, or to email them, or, believe it or not, pick up the phone, call them on the phone, and let them know, hey, I just got your gift. Pretty good, right? Not shocking for us, but sometimes we have had people give gifts and they will call and say, hey, did you ever get, oh yeah, I got that, thank you very much. And your chances of getting a gift next time goes down. And so I kind of coached that first service, who typically give a lot of gifts, to not always getting information back, to go ahead and send an email or a card saying, hey, did you get that gift I sent you? Not ever having given a gift, but just to write that to see if you would get a response back to them, because oftentimes grandparents send gifts and they never get a response back. And so I was kind of coaching them, hey, just every once in a while, hey, did you get that gift? And see if they get a response quickly, because I imagine most of us go, no, I didn't get that gift. They're like, well, good, I didn't send it. And I just want to check on that to make sure we got the communication going back and forth. So inform the giver immediately of that gift, and then say, thank you. Thank you. It's a nice response, right? But what happens for all of our gifts? Are there some rules that apply to all the gifts that we give? Well, yes, there are. For all gifts, you are to do this. You are to have a handwritten thank you note. For all gifts. That's proper in etiquette. Some of you grew up in this time where you had to write a thank you note out by hand, not an email with an electronic signature. That does not count. That counts a little bit, but not the full count. But anytime you receive a gift, you should send a handwritten thank you note to say, thank you very much for the gift. It doesn't count to print those up and make copies of that and leave a blank. That does not count. You have to physically write a handwritten thank you note to all the gifts, and that is the proper way to receive a gift. But you and I both know that we can do all of those things and not really receive the gift. We can be polite in response. The things that I've talked about really are more or less for politeness, and I'm really hoping that politeness comes back in our culture. It seems like we've lost that, but I really never, and maybe it will, because I never really thought that gasoline prices would be less than $2 again, and so here we are, and so maybe politeness will come back. But I'm talking more than just being polite. How do you really receive, how do you really embrace the gift that a person gives you? Well, it's kind of like, the way that I was thinking about this is kind of like getting one of those shirts in a box. Guys, you know what I'm talking about? That you will get that shirt in the box where you don't have to decide what tie to put with that. Somebody somewhere has done the hard work for you and has put the color combinations together, put some things that look nice together, and you get this cute, beautifully wrapped box with the gift in it. Now, let me ask you this. Excuse me. If you get one of these and you never take the shirt out of the box, did you really, really receive that gift? More than likely, the answer is not, because the person who gave you the gift was never encouraging you to keep their box with a shirt in it for the rest of your life, right? In fact, they, when they give that to you, have this anticipation that they might see you wearing that shirt and that tie so that they might get a feeling and a sense that that gift was received, it was embraced, and it was worn. Does that make sense to you? I mean, if you're given a gift in a box and you never open the box, did you really receive the gift? Well, kind of if you were polite, but you never embraced it. Sometimes, however, in order to embrace that gift or sweater that comes, we do so with, well, not just real excitement about receiving the gifts that we receive. Take a look at this couple. Now, apparently, they received these beautiful sweaters, probably hand-knit by grandma, probably like that or something like that. And though they are wearing them, the looks on their faces does not demonstrate to me that they've really embraced the sweater that they have, right? It's sometimes like we as men sometimes receive wonderful gifts, oftentimes from our children, and some of you may remember these ties that came out several years ago that played a tune. If you had your tie, anybody ever get a tie that played a tune? Nobody got a tie that played a tune? Well, you missed out on these great days of the 80s because this was like a cool technology that you had to plug into the electric cord and walk. No, you couldn't have to do that. It actually had a battery in there, and you could push it, and then now they've got some that light up, that can sing little songs and light up. And as a father, sometimes, if you receive a gift kind of like that, you have to embrace that and have to wear it, though you're not really enjoying it. However, this guy really has embraced his sweater. He is like, I am kitty cat, hear me roar. This is what this guy is saying. He is saying cats demonstrate power, right? He's actually embracing this, enjoying the kitties that are there on his sweater, saying, yes, I own this. This is mine. He has embraced it. He has owned it. He has made it his own, which in this case is a little scary, but it demonstrates, I think, the way that you and I are supposed to receive the gift that Christ has given us. Because here's what happens to us spiritually. Spiritually, some of us may come into this room, give a mental assent to the gospel, meaning so you're saying, I believe that and all, but never really taking it out of the box. It's some kind of heritage that our family has. It's something that unites us and we'll go to church, but I've kind of separated that from reality. I keep that in my box over there, and if I need to, I will pull it out, or I will put that on if grandma's coming over, or whatever that is. I'll put that back on Sunday morning when I'm not going to embrace that in my work life. I'm not going to embrace that in my social life. But when I'm in the right church-type setting with family, yes, I'll take it out and put that on, but I've never really made it my own. So what I want to do is to talk to you about how do you have a proper response, how do you properly embrace, how do you properly respond to the gift of Jesus, and we're going to do that by looking at Luke chapter 2. So if you've got your Bibles this morning, I know I've spent a lot of time talking about different things, but I'm trying to help you not just spiritually, but also physically as well. And so when you come to Luke chapter 2, we're going to look at some guys who I think demonstrated what does it mean to embrace or to receive this gift of God. Not just mental assent, but what did they do? And when we come to Luke chapter 2, most of you be familiar, this is the Christmas story, the authorized Christmas story. And in this chapter, we hear lots of different things about the setting, and then the setting kind of moves from kind of just a general cultural setting to this moment with these guys that are called shepherds who are out in their field watching their flocks by night. And just to remind you, shepherds were not high on the social scale. They were considered unclean spiritually, and so they could not participate in the activities of the temple. They were not allowed to attend the synagogue and be a part of all of that. They were considered outsiders as secondary citizens. They were guys who actually spent the night, which you're not really supposed to work at night in the Jewish culture, that they're out there, they're making a living, they're not seen as valuable by anybody, and it's to that group of people that these angels show up and light up the sky and give this message to these shepherds, and I want to follow the response of the shepherds to the pronouncement of the coming of the Messiah. It's in Luke chapter 2, and when we come to verse 15, we're told what happens. When the angels went away from them into heaven, so we've already had the angels come, showed up, in a very, very dark place, bright lights, angels come, shout and sing and all those things. When the angels went away from them into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, they at least said these things. I'm sure they said more, but they at least said this thing to them: let us go over to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has made known to us. I want you to notice some of the actions that are going on here. The first action that we see is that as they're discussing this, they're saying, you know what? We had better go and see this. Now that sounds like a no-brainer. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and an angel comes and talks to you, you're probably going to do what the angel says, right? But what I've discovered after living in Branson for as many years as I have lived is that ultimately we become numb to the things that are going on around us. For instance, there are people who hear about a particular band, a particular singer, or a particular speaker, and they will travel across the country to come to Branson to see them, and you and I have no idea that that special person was in town. Has this happened to you? Since you've lived in Branson, I have noticed that people will call me, hey, I was in Branson last week to see so-and-so. And I'm like, so-and-so? Yeah, where'd you see him? Well, he was over. Really? I had no idea that person was here. Has that happened to you? People cross all the country, and we don't even cross the street to go see somebody because we are so inundated by all the wonderful, amazing people that come to Branson, but we don't even know they're here. They come and they go. Thousands of people will show up. We had no idea that we were here. Sometimes we're disappointed that we didn't get to see them, but we can be in the middle of all of the action and not even know what's going on. And you know, I think the same thing could have happened to those shepherds. They could have watched that and said, wow, that was really cool. Did you see how that lit up thing? And I was like, wow, that was really cool. What are we going to do today? Well, we're going to sit here and watch our sheep. Because we're here to watch sheep. We're not supposed to go and do that stuff. And they could have begun to make excuses. They could have said, no, wait a minute, we can't leave our sheep because if we leave our sheep, we're going to get fired. And if we leave our sheep, they're going to wander away. We can't do any of those things. But they responded with in fact, here's how they went on to respond. And they went with haste. That means right away. They went immediately. They were in a hurry. They decided they ought to go see it right now. They didn't wait to figure out a plan to go, okay, well, I've got time next Thursday. Maybe on next Thursday I'll go check out what they were talking about. Or, hey, let me call somebody to make sure that the sheep gets watched, and then I've got vacation coming or whatever. They didn't do that. They went with haste. It's as if they heard that. They said, what are we going to do? They're like, well, we're going to go see this thing. And then they took off, and then they found. Now, if you're a woman here, you're like, you mean men were able to find something? Yes, it's in the Bible. They were able to find something, right? If you happen to be living with a man or with boy children, you know it is very difficult for a man to find anything, even when they're told specifically where it is, right? It's in the top drawer, and the guy walks over to the top drawer, opens the drawer, doesn't see it, closes the drawer, goes back. Hey, I can't find it, it's not there, right? Part of that is because your wife has hidden it from you between the time she sent you and the time you're able to go find it. Because women do that to us, men. That's what's happened, right? When we go try to find something, we can't find it. They've hidden it from us, right? But most of the time, when men are trying to find something that they have been sent to find, they can't find it. Now, if they're looking for something they're trying to find, they may find it, but if they're sent by somebody else, they have a hard time. But notice these guys went with haste, and they kept searching until they found it. What did they find? They found Mary and Joseph and the baby lying in a manger just like it was supposed to be. They went with haste, and they found. But that's not all they did. They went with haste, and they found, and when they saw it, not the baby being an it, but saw it, meaning the scene that was set up for it, when they saw it, they made known the saying that had been told them concerning this child. What does that mean? That means they were telling everybody about that, and all who heard it wondered at what the shepherds told them. I think this is a really important point. They had the responsibility of making known to everyone. They had the responsibility of going, hey, you wouldn't believe what happened to us, but we were out there, and the angel said, and we went, and there he was. That's what they came out and said. They made known what they experienced. They made known what they saw. And you and I have a tendency to talk about the things that are important to us, things that are kind of cool to us, things that are special to us, and we begin to talk about those. And sometimes we are afraid that if we talk about something, especially when it comes to spiritual things, that we may not have the answer. And so oftentimes, or at least sometimes, we're afraid to talk about that because we're afraid they may ask us a question that we may not know. But notice in the passage, it doesn't say that everybody understood and responded. It said the people wondered. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay for you to share what you have seen, what you know to be the truth, and that person not understand. That's okay. Because God can use that wonderment, that confusion in that person. It's when we talk about sharing the gospel with people. God can use your bad way of sharing, your messed up way of sharing, you're confusing the person as you share, not getting the words right, not saying all those things properly. God can use that, but He cannot use your silence in another person's life. And so these guys show up, they begin to tell Mary and Joseph, and can you imagine the response of Mary and Joseph if a bunch of shepherds showed up all of a sudden? Who come into where this brand new baby has been born and they have not used any hand sanitizer when they get close to your baby? Do you remember that first baby you had, ladies? That you protected that baby and nobody got to touch that baby until they were 12 years old? Remember that? Keep all the diseases out, and that second child you have, day 2, you're out there, hey, would somebody take my baby for a second? I got to go to the restroom over here. Would you? And just total strangers, you're asking people to do that. Isn't that strange how that happens? Well, imagine Mary and Joseph are there, and these guys show up. These are shepherds. They've been with sheep, and they're not smelling good, and their etiquette's not proper, and they're there. But they don't care about that because they are on a mission to come and to see, and they're telling everybody. That first place they couldn't find the baby, they're like, well, we're here because we're looking for this baby. And word spread quickly throughout that entire region as they responded to this message. But it doesn't end there. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all they had heard and seen as it had been told them. I think this ought to bring a lot of relief to some of you. Because what happened to the shepherds was they went back to work. They returned. And sometimes I'm afraid there are people who say, I really want to follow God, but I don't want to be a missionary to Africa. And they equate following God to being a missionary to Africa. That's not the case. Or some of you are like, if I really want to be effective and I really want to follow God, then I got to be a pastor someplace and I got to start being nice to people. No, 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 no. What they did is they went back, they returned to what they were doing beforehand because all God wanted them to do is to hear the message and go back to their people group. Now, for some people, God does call them to go to another kind of people group, to another region. But they went back apparently to talk to other shepherds about what they saw because they did that. Over the years, as new shepherds would come in, those guys would sit around and they'd go, hey, you guys remember that night? Well, you weren't here when we had that night, but back in the day, we were out there in this field one day, and they would tell, they told that story, right? It's like that catch you made in high school, and you're still talking about it, right? Nobody cares anymore as you made that catch in high school, except for you, right? But those guys are telling, and there wasn't a shepherd, there could not have been a shepherd in 1,000 miles that had not heard that story because we have a tendency to sit out there. Well, it was a night just like this. It was dark over here, and that happened. But they went back, and they glorified and praised God. They gave Him credit. They talked about Him. They talked to other people about Him because what they had heard, they actually saw. Now, there are some who would argue that these shepherds were actually the temple shepherds. In fact, the last time that I was in Bethlehem, which is the only time that I was in Bethlehem, but it sounds really cool to say the last time that I was in Bethlehem. And so the last time that I was in Bethlehem, our guide, who happened to be a follower of Christ, we think, who was Arab, was telling us that in that region, they believe, with all honesty, that the shepherds that were there who heard the message were the ones who raised the little sheep that were going to be the sacrificial lambs for the temple. Now, I can't verify that or not, but it does sound intriguing, does sound interesting, because not only is this message of the Savior who has been born, but it's basically a message that, hey, you guys are out of a job. Because all this ritual stuff that you've been doing that's pointing to the Messiah, He's here now. And we want you to go see him. We want you to be the first to see him. And you've got about 30 years or so here to figure out another career path instead of this sheep herding thing that you've got. So you might want to get to work at that, because everything that's been leading to this moment is here, and we want you to be the first to know. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, but it sure seems to make the package all come together in this whole story, and it seems to fit. So why do I tell you all this about some shepherds thousands of years ago? Well, I tell all you this because I've really got a question for you. And the question is, have you really received this gift? Have you gone through that same process where you've taken action? Not just a mental understanding and a passive ambivalence. Well, yeah, that may be true. Yeah, that's kind of nice. I'll pull that out if I need it for some kind of job interview and I find out the guy's a Christian, and so I'll talk some of the Christianese to him, or I'm going to live my life this way, but when I go back for Christmas, that's going to weird everybody out of my family, and so I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk this well. But have you ever really taken action, or have you really left that gift of Christ in some box someplace in the back part of your closet? Because what happened to me and what happened to others that I read about is that they encountered a Christ that radically changed everything. And without action, it's hard for me to believe that you have run into that King who you have heard about and who you've experienced. And if you're not talking about him, if you're not taking action to tell others about him, if you're not returning to your field of service, your area, I'm not sure you actually ever really heard or that you ever actually experienced and you saw. Because with no going, with no priority, with no seeing, no finding, no telling, no returning, no glorifying, no praising, it just may be that nothing really ever happened to you. May you not reject the gift, the greatest gift, but instead, in your hearts, if you will receive him and believe on his name, he will cause a transformation in your life that will keep you talking about him all the days on this earth, and then continuation of that story for all of eternity. And he grants that to those who believe on his name. Would you bow your heads and close your eyes this morning? Really want to ask you a question. Have you really received that? Have you received that gift? Have you taken action? I'm not saying to you, come to church and you're a nice person. I'm glad you're here. That's awesome. I know you're a nice person. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the message. Has it penetrated your heart, penetrated your soul, that it's made you different? If it hasn't, it may be because you never saw, you never heard, you never experienced. See, the motivation of those shepherds was, we heard about this, we went to see it, and it is confirmed. It has happened. And I can assure you, in my own life, there was that moment where I had to make a decision. I had to repent of my sin, change my mind about what sin is, and redirect my life toward his. There are many other people in this room who've done that. But if you've never done that, then today could be the day for you if you would receive the gift by repenting of your sin, repenting of your unbelief in Jesus Christ, and turning toward him in forgiveness. And you can do that with a simple prayer of admitting your need, claiming that Christ, asking him to forgive you of your sin, and then claiming him as your Lord and Savior, for whom you will follow all of your days. Or maybe you're looking at that list of things that they did, these shepherds, and you can pick out 2 or 3 that you did or have done, but you can't say that you've done all those things. Maybe you're not telling like you're supposed to. Maybe you're not praising like you're supposed to. Maybe it's always, you're looking at the negative side of everything instead of what God has done. Or maybe God's calling you to take another step of obedience, to join our church officially and become an official member, or to follow him in baptism. Or maybe there's a few of you, and there's maybe just one or so, that God really is going to ask you to leave your life to follow him. Whatever it is, let me pray for you this morning and ask you to respond. Father, we're thankful for the gift that you've given us. Father, help us not to reject the gift, but to receive it and to embrace it and to own it. Father, help us not to be people who just hear about rumors of things, but never go and check it out. Father, instead, cause us to come to experience what we believe we can experience in you. And we're thankful for Christ in this Christmas season that we might receive the greatest gift of all. Father, help us in these strange times to live out this gospel, loving people to you, living this journey, and maybe do these things to honor and praise you and to benefit those who live around us. And we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Let me ask you to stand to your feet. We're going to sing a song, a response song, a reflection. I'll be down front. Prayer partners will be here. Maybe there's a decision you need to make. Would you do that as we stand together and as we sing?